Okay, recording has started. It is about 8:34 p.m. It is Wednesday, January the 13th. Welcome to week two of Introduction to Corrections. I'm Professor Richard Wright, and I appreciate you guys coming out tonight. I'm going to start out the way I started out my last two lectures with saying that, well, actually, I think we talked about it last week because it happened last Wednesday. Um, a week ago today, we had something that never occurred on American soil. The attempt to overtake the government, to stop the certification that the law allows of the um, president and vice president elect. Um, but you know, it was terrible. It was one of the worst things that I have seen. I thought the worst thing that I would see would be September the 11th. Some of you may or may not remember seeing that when I watched those towers come down and saw the death of people jumping off out of the building, um, and then moving forth to last Wednesday, where I saw people threatening to murder and kill elected officials, um, from um, the House, uh, the presiding officer of the House, uh, Nancy Pelosi, to the Vice President of the Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence, because he refused to do what he was uh, told to do that he really couldn't do legally. Um, the people desecrated the house. We found out now that there was urine and feces all over the place. Uh, it, it was nothing but an insurrection. And now we find out now what the FBI said, it was not just ignited from the speech, but it had been being planned. I mean, organized. So it was an organized uh, uh, process. And unfortunately, 3 members of the U.S. Congress House uh, were involved with communicating with one of the main organizers of that. Terrible, 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 terrible. It speaks to one of the things that we as individuals in criminal justice need to be aware of. Attacking law enforcement officers. You know, they were talking about trying to compare it to some of the riots that took place when George Floyd and some of these other people were killed. Uh, the message that was taking place was to assassinate and stop the government, overthrow the electoral votes that each of us have placed. These whole theories, this whole conspiracy theories touted by the president that the election was stolen is garbage. And you remember I told you, you can't operate unethically. You can't operate with lies. And I'm going to tell you something, guys, as a lawyer, uh, my school here, I don't know, I took the shirt off, Northwestern School of Law, it would be ridiculous for me to participate in those kind of things. This is not about whether you're Democrat or Republican. This is about if you are an American citizen. People died for the right to vote. Many of them were minorities, people of my family lineage from the South to vote. Going back to Martin Luther King and the things that he said. So I have to say this in the lectures. The school has issued a statement uh, condemning it. You saw the statement, you probably each received the email, and that this has created some problems for people. Put this on top of what's happening with the pandemic, which is going the wrong way. You don't want to be in California. I don't think any of you guys are in California, but I have family members, and I'm sure some of you have family members in California. Almost all of us do. It's terrible. Um, so put that together with having to deal with that, and then finally, ultimately, resulting in today, the first president ever impeached twice, and then, as I said on Facebook, um, a person can't come back after they commit a crime, and then yeah, they can apologize but not accept full responsibility for it. That's why leadership is so important. That's why each of you guys are going to be examples of people that um, should be, as I said, my goal is to provide ethical, professional, and educated criminal justice individuals. So you guys are the future. And in the meantime, uh, we just have to hope and keep praying for people. But it's dangerous times. I am appalled, and there are people who are committing suicide because of the circumstances that we find ourselves in, that have to do with the pandemic, that have to do with the situation that just occurred the other day. Um, Disrespectful of the government. Uh, they said that there were attempts to challenge the election in the House and the Senate uh, every time, but that's the legislators. But when it reaches a stage where it reaches violence, and 5 people and counting have died as a result of that. At least two police officers, Capitol. When the police officers died, it took 5 days for the president to fly the flag at half-mast, and he has yet to reach out to give condolences to the family. I'm appalled and um, beyond. So I heard something that I never thought I'd hear. The Senate leader Mitch McConnell say, "Impeach the man, get him out of our hair because we don't want to see him or hear from him anymore." Well, that's why people says, "Oh, people playing politics." This is not politics, people. So anyway, I didn't say this for comments from you guys. If you wanted to make comments, that's fine. But I can tell you this. This is the United States of America, not Russia or one of those socialist, fascist countries. This is, and I've seen a lot of things in my years. My degree was in political science, and what I have seen here has to do with fascism. Okay, this is democracy, people. That's how we operate. Okay, now it's time for me to get going with this. Share my screen. I love this country. I just I don't like what people are doing to it. I really don't. We should be able to disagree, and that's okay. That's all right. All right, so here we are, week 2. After today, we will have 3 more lectures. 3 more lectures. And you should know that the lectures will be each on Wednesdays. And then there is no week 6 lecture. All right, and then here's the recording here. Under here will be the recording for the week 2 as well. Let's take a look at the course calendar. Today is the 13th. You can see where we are here. Your reading assignment was given on Monday. All right, and then it's contained in the week 2 announcement, the requirements. The initial post was due yesterday, adult and juvenile correction systems. Notice that this is the first week that you had posts, so be aware that your posts should be detailed. There's a rubric in there that you can look at, but it demonstrates some critical thinking. And please, whatever you do not copy somebody else's post and use it for your post. I had a student to do that, not in this class, but it was actually in one of my other classes, which was ridiculous because both of the other classes are students who are about to graduate. And that student got really rebuked very seriously because that was very unethical. That's plagiarism at its highest. So your initial post should be based on your thoughts, and your reply post responding to another. That is due the 16th. And then on the 17th, your written assignment, correctional systems. And then your quiz, which you know how that works, but we'll talk about that too again. And then your live classroom lecture. But notice this. After this week, the 13th, it takes us, we got 2 more and we're done with January, and then we get into February, and February 3rd is the very last lecture, and the class ends 6 days later on the 9th. Not the 10th, not the 11th, 12th, 13th, or 14th. So let's get that straight. So then your assignments will be due for week 6 on the 9th. During this lecture, I will talk about the assignments that are due for the last week of class, which are not a lot. So make sure you be aware of it. I always remind you, so important that you understand that the 9th, I inevitably will have a student that says, I didn't realize it ended the 9th. What that student does when they do that is they told me that they didn't look at the calendar, they didn't read the announcements, they told me that they did not definitely listen to the lectures. So it's very important, very, very important. All right. And please, whatever you do when you listen to the lectures, don't just listen to the lectures to get the key word. That's doing a disservice to yourself. I don't care, but it's doing a disservice to yourself. You're paying good money for a good education, and then we're preparing you, and things that I share with you add to what you have to read. Notice, if you notice, I comment about the stuff that we have in the module. I do not talk about the PowerPoints. I do not talk about the chapters, but the materials there, and then I elaborate and give you some experiences, some examples, and some ideas to help you understand what you need to do. That's how I roll. That's my job as a professor to do. All right, so let's close that up. Then we get to the module. So now the topic is adults, juveniles, and criminal behavior. Assignments, again, more in detail. Your discussion assignment is the differences between adult and juvenile correction systems in terms of process, terminology, and philosophy. In your initial post, explain differences between the two and support the selection of one of the three differences by providing a specific example of a process with the terminology included, and why do you believe the difference is important. We'll talk a little bit about that tonight, and then your reply post choose up here who describes a position different from yours. And again, that is due again tonight. Last night, the initial post, and the reply post Saturday. And every Saturday, your initial posts are due. Every Tuesday, your initial posts are due, every Tuesday, and your reply posts due every Saturday, except the last week in week 6, which will be due that 9th I showed you. So let's now look at the, any questions about the discussion post? Type in the chat box if you do, yes or no. Any questions? Okay. Anybody else? Questions? Okay. Okay, no questions. Seems like everybody has no questions. Okay. Well, anyway, moving right along to the written assignment. So let me break it down for you. You're going to, as it says, as correction practitioners are learning more effective in different intervention strategies to work with offenders to reduce recidivism. Remember, the goal ought to be in corrections is to reduce recidivism. Everybody should know recidivism is repeating a crime or repeating a trip to jail. And you know, oftentimes, one of the issues that we face that creates overcrowdedness is repeat offenders, people running cycles. They go in prison or the correction system, they go out, they get back in trouble, they go back in, and so forth. But there are some issues that we talk about in some of my classes that contribute to recidivism. One of the major ones that those of you who will take it, if you take it next term, I teach drugs and crime. And I always say that drugs is a major contributor to recidivism, and you can take a person and lock them up 50 years. And if they have a drug problem and you haven't treated that drug problem, they are definitely going to be a recidivist because they're going to commit crimes to support their habits. And so we don't, as we say, as it says here correctly, corrections is not a one size fits all. And so we have a lot of individuals from various populations, women, juveniles, the elderly, mental illness. Mental illness is the next issue that creates a tremendous amount of recidivism behind drugs. And then imagine there are people who have drugs and mental illness combined. Really, really tragic. Law enforcement is learning how to deal with particularly mentally ill people, so that they can learn how to de-escalate without taking the life of individuals who suffer from mental illness, who might possess weapons. Then we have individuals who have gone on to service in the military, and because of what they lived in Iraq or Iran, in one of those foreign countries during some kind of confrontation, things that they saw. We had so many people that I knew from the 60s to the 70s that went to Vietnam. You guys too young to know about that, but you read about it. It was terrible. I got friends that had great minds. Yours truly was heading in that direction, but they couldn't take me because of my dad being the sole male other than me. He was killed when I was 7, and then after that I had no brothers, and then of course I had no daughters, no sons until much later, much later. So they couldn't take me, and that's where they were sending people. So I ended up staying here and going to school. It was by the grace of God that that happened. And so some of my friends that will tell you even now that even those who didn't end up incarcerated still had other issues. And you know, there are so many individuals who became homeless that are vets, even those that had the government program that provide them the opportunity, the GI Bill, to get housing. They still ended up homeless for a number of reasons. And then, unfortunately, the vets are treated too often like they started the war, and become disposable. So anyway, your job here in this written assignment is to select one of these special populations. I've already kind of talked about them a little bit, and just one. Did you hear me? There's some people who want to take more than one. No, just take one. One, because you do act like you're Colonel Sanders. Okay. All right. What that means is we do chicken and we do it right. If you do substance abusers, do it right, and all the way down to the titles. And then create an action plan that contains, because that's what you're going to be doing, your assignment, an action plan. And with an action plan, what you're doing is you're providing the things that relate to the characteristics of being a substance abuser, for example, or mental illness, or sex offender. Provide an overview of the characteristics of that group. And then in the second part, describe an issue that impacts your special population in the correctional system. Explain a proposed solution to address the issue that you deal with in the first bullet point, and then provide supporting evidence from credible sources. Do you hear me? That means somebody asked me, is it APA? Yes, it is APA. Okay, and it must be a Word document and professional language spelling and correction. Now, how many pages does it have to be? The adequate number of pages to cover the issues. Now, don't give me no one-liner. You know, you remember, you guys are in college. You know, don't tell me substance abusers are people who use drugs. That's it. No, there's more to it. You know, elaborate on it. There are different kinds of drugs. There are different issues with drugs and so forth. And there's some resources to help you, telling you how to do an action plan. I'm not going to go over these. You take a time to go over these. But make sure that you use a Word document, people. Make sure you have a cover page and references. Okay? Now, here is the rubric for 60 points. Which column are you going to operate in? Which column do I recommend operating in? Anybody remember? You got emerging, competence, proficiency. Yes, mastery. Always. Professor, why are you always? Remember what I said. You do not want to just, that's why I said don't ever ask me how to get a C in my class or a D. I'm pointing toward A's and B's in class. And you ought to appreciate that because I'm preparing you for opportunities of advancement in the future. The reason why your professor is at the stage that he's in has been very successful. I've never been turned down for a job, not just because I went to good schools. You're in a good school too, because you also have good professors who have been trained, like yours truly, to be able to and have been and are experts in the field. We all have worked in criminal justice that teach these classes, and I wear multiple hats. Where I was not in corrections, but I worked with so many correction officers, and I studied the processes that are involved with dealing with individuals in the correctional system, whether it's jails, prisons, probation, and parole. I worked extensively in probation to help people to understand the importance of successfully being able to complete probation and get on with their lives. I had people who were paroled to explain to them that you're given a chance to, and I had many clients. We dealt with all of those things as a defense lawyer. So mastery. And so your characteristics of your special population. Okay, remember, one special population. And a lot of people write about populations that they can relate to. That's good. That's a very good thing. And it says, look at this. Overview of the characteristics of your population supported by credible sources. Okay. Impact the issues that affect your credible sources. Again, that affect your special population. Use credible sources again. Propose solution. Credible sources. Again. Thorough alignment. And then free from spelling, typos, grammar, mechanics use. And then you already know that so citations and references, cover page as well. So you want to make sure. So look what happens if you don't have, let me tell you something. If you don't have credible sources, there is no way for you to get here or here. You're automatically going to go into this. Missing supporting evidence. All the way down, you'll notice that. So if you did no credible sources and you can provide information that would be good over here, you could get 20, 31, 32 points. And I have students that get 32 points, a whole lot, unfortunately, because they don't hear me. They go ahead and try to do this without paying attention. I teach that these don't exist. If I had my way, I would cross these out. I would cross these out and not even pay attention to them. So you start all the way over here and you act like this is covered up. Well, I covered up the whole thing, but you act like proficiency, competence, and emergent are covered up. Any questions about what you have to do? This assignment can be made very easy or very difficult. All I'm really asking you to do is give me an area that has to do with a special group, and we've given you the list of special populations. We're asking you to give us issues that relate to that special population. We're asking you to give us some solutions to help that special population. That's what we're asking you to do. Okay? Double space, please. Not single space. If you give me single space, you're going to lose points. All right. I saw one person had no questions. Anybody else have any questions? Speak now. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else have a question? Okay. So anybody, name one special population. Type it in the chat box. Name one. Everybody should type something in there. Okay. Women is one. Others? Shouldn't take long for you to give me that. Juveniles. Next. Next. Alcohol abuse. Okay. Yes. Those are three. You will be surprised sometimes that I will ask you a question because I want to make sure you didn't just log in and go do your dinner or go watch TV and let it run itself, because that's not a good idea either. I did have one student that I know did that because I did something to prove that to them and let them know later. So it's not good. It's not good. Um, and as when you're physically in class, you can't do those things, and you shouldn't do that while you're in class. I'm not accusing anybody in here of doing that, but it's very important that people understand this is serious stuff that you're spending good money for. Maximize your money. Okay, so that's it for the assignment, and then we come back and everybody understands that you have a time quiz and that it's set for 30 minutes and that you have 3 opportunities before the end of the due date on the 17th. I think that's right. The 17th, Sunday. I think that's right. Yeah. So you want to make sure that you uh, do that. Now, study and pay attention to some of the things that we're going to talk about in class and things that you can do. Make sure you read your chapters. Make sure that you um, use your PowerPoints. When you're taking the quiz, you shouldn't use any of those things or notes or any of that stuff, because it tells you you agree to abide by the academic misconduct policy. And notice you'll have 30 minutes for each time. Okay, and then you'll get warnings as well. And yeah, so if you look at this, it tells you that it is due the 17th. That's the date it is due. I said the 10th, the 17th. So the 10th was last Sunday. So it's the 17th. And then the final thing that you have is your live classroom lecture, which really those of you who come to class can usually get that and put that in the Dropbox right away and get your points for that. Otherwise, those who don't will have to listen and go through the lecture and be able to get that information as well, because it's required. And that's it for assignments. So I'm about to leave assignments. We got about 20 minutes or so. So we're going to talk about some theories impacting corrections, incarceration in the prison, special population, adult. And so we're going to just talk a little bit about each of these. We're not going to spend a lot of time. And then your vocabulary review, which is so important. So, so to look at the theories impacting corrections, this is an interactive activity that contains additional material to what you're reading to enhance your learning. Make sure that you turn, if you have a pop-up blocker turned on, you don't want it on. So, so you go, I think I got it right here. Oh, that's the JPEG. Wrong. This is it. So you open it up by clicking on that topic, and then it begins to tell you the things. So these are theories that deal with corrections, and so these are things that you're going to go over, and I'm not going to go over these in lectures, but you're going to make sure that you go through and take you all the way through. And in fact, you can't, I don't know if you can hear, can you hear this lady's voice? I know you can't. You can't hear it, can you? No, you're not supposed to. But that's because I got my headphones on. But go through and take the time and go through the whole thing. And the idea of this is to help you learn about impacts, theories impacting corrections. Now, why do you want to know these? Because first of all, one, you'll be reading about them, but also you'll understand that some of these are on your exam. So you want to take the time to go through this. I could spend the whole hour just doing this one area, but I'm explaining this is something extra to help you. All right. So now we look at the next section, and this is where I will talk to you about some things. So notice what happens with incarceration and prison. So you have three models that overlap. If you pay close attention, the custodial model, which we're going to talk about, touches reintegration. Well, it doesn't really touch it. It touches rehabilitation. So both the custodial model and the reintegration model. So the custodial model has to do with what it means, being in custody, lengths of periods of time. Reintegration model is preparing you to come back into the community. Rehabilitation model, you should know about that because I talk about it all the time, is to turn that person in a new direction. Have I talked to you guys about my my clock, my 12 o'clock clock thing yet? Have I mentioned that to you guys? Have you heard of it? Okay, you're getting ready to learn about it now. So here's what rehabilitation does. Okay, imagine a clock. You have a clock in a circle. The top is 12. The first to the right is 3. At the bottom is 6. And then you have 9 to the left. And then you're back to 12 again. So everybody's familiar with that. All right. So I know we have digital clocks now, but you understand what I'm talking about. All right. So when a person is rehabilitated, the goal is to get them to 6 o'clock. And that is what I call a 180. Now, that whole circle from 12 to 3 to 6 to 9 and back to 12 is 360 degrees. So you're aware that a circle is 360 degrees in circumference. Okay, you learn that from geometry. Well, 1/4 of that is 15 minutes. So from 12 to 3, it's 15 minutes. Now, when a person goes to 3, they're still able to see to their left where they came from because it's still there. That's where they start out in the bad situation at 12. So we're getting them better when we get to 3. But you have 2 opportunities at 3. You could go back to 12 or you can continue to move forward to 6. Is everybody with me so far? Okay. So this is an illustration to help you. You'll never forget it. And so then when you get to, on your way to closer, you get to 6. 6 is at the bottom. 6, you cannot see where you started out. You can't see it. So now you're in a new vein. So you're learning new stuff. And so you're going in a new direction and you stay on 6. You don't go back to 5. You don't go to, well, you can't go back in time. You don't go to 7, because now you're heading back towards getting that bad habit. So the ideal thing is to get you to 180. That's why I tell people that rehabilitation represents, the optimal is 180 or the bottom of the clock, because then you're in a new direction. Notice what will happen if you continue to move towards this, to 7 and then 8, the 9, the 10, 11. Guess what? You'll be right back where you started. So do you see why I say 6 is optimal? Everybody got that? Because it is so important that you understand. So if you think about it, as I try to teach people this, that when you have bad things happen in your life, they should be in that rear view mirror. Just like in your car, your rear view mirror is small. Your windshield is bigger. If you focus on that rear view mirror too much, you're going to have an accident. But you have a rear view mirror so you can see what's behind you. When you get further and further away from where you started, in that rear view mirror where you came from gets smaller and smaller and smaller until you can't see it anymore. That's what happens at 6. Bam. And so that's what we want to do. Our goal is to get people to 6. And so while we're in custody, working on reintegration, we're spending most of our time working towards this as the ultimate goal. Notice it says the custodial model is where they emphasize security through discipline and order. That's the length of time that you're incarcerated. Skip the rehabilitation model for a minute. Let's go to reintegration, where emphasis includes the maintenance of ties to families, where you have families, community, and things of that nature. And then rehabilitation is where you have treatment programs to reform or address the needs of the individual. In short, to get them to 6 o'clock. So now, the goal of corrections is to take that person from custodial to reintegration, but working to rehabilitate them. And so, which of the aspects of corrections has to do with reintegration? And I'm going to ask you: is it jail? Is it prison? Is it probation or parole? Which has to do with reintegration? Absolutely, parole. Parole is the optimal. Yes, there's some aspects of it in probation, but remember the difference between the two is with probation, you never go to jail. With parole, you go to jail, but you finish the rest of your sentence outside. So yeah, the key thing with is to let you out early and put you in situations where you deal with families and the community and things that begin to get you on the right track to ultimately get you to what you need in terms of treatment for rehabilitation. That's it. And all this other stuff that talks about actually covers and deals with all of that. Now, you reach the point that you have different kinds of facilities depending upon the risk of the individual and the circumstances or the stage that these individuals are in that model. So you have the maximum security. That's the high, and then you got the medium security, and then you got the minimum, which is low risk. Okay, so the risk levels of dealing with individuals. So maximum security facilities, as they say, limit or minimize the escape. They have the huge walls. They're the ones that everybody call prisons, with the guns, with the towers, and with the barbed wire and other kinds of things. And that you go to those when you've committed serious violent offenses. Okay, and that and it, as it says, strict limits to minimize escape and violence. So you have more segregation that's involved there, more time that you're in your cell, and less time out when you're dealing with. And it depends on the offense. So a person who might steal a car, which would be a felony, um, and they steal a car. I didn't say carjack. Steal a car. They would probably find themselves in which one of these security positions? Anybody know? Yep, that's exactly correct. That's exactly correct. Medium security, less rigid restrictions, and then minimum security, more freedom and offenders and visitors. A person who commits a crime, but the reason they commit is because they're alcoholic or they have a drug problem, where do you think they would end up? Hopefully in a minimum. However, it will depend on the type of offense that they commit. So you remember, like okay, cause obviously theft, just theft. If it's something that they steal that's over, or maybe if they have, well, if it's repeating, it still could be, because remember what I said. There's going to be repeating, which is recidivism, to individuals who don't get the help that they need for the problem they have. You have to address the problem. So if it's drug problems, it's unfair to throw that person in a max, because the fact that they're sick. It's, remember we talked about, or you don't know because you haven't taken the drugs and crime course, but in the drugs and crime course, you're going to learn that individuals are treated as if drug possession and drug use is epidemic like the pandemic. It's a sickness. It's an illness. Okay. So the maximum security is designed to minimize escape or violence and restrict the freedom and visitors. The medium, as it says, designed to prevent escape and violence, but the restrictions are less. So you might have violent offenders, but there may be some reasons why, like drugs, or you might have something along those lines, or you might have individuals that um, didn't commit murder. If a person commits murder, which security place you think they're going to more than likely end up? Where they're going to more than likely end up? Which of the three? A murderer. Anybody? Take somebody's life? Yeah, max. And then minimum were designed to prevent offenders such as freedom as inconsistent with the concept of incarceration. And so you go through and you read through this, the prison experience. Um, and so you deal with the age groups of individuals. Notice the 5 factors that are issues, that are problems that have to be addressed, such as inadequate supervision. Why is that? Because of budgetary restraints. Uh, the architectural design that promotes rather than inhibits victimization. In other words, there are people who are caged and locked in and kept in, and so if you get frustrated, you get angry. Weapons are available, believe it or not, because there are weapons that are smuggled in, and they're not the weapons that the officers carry, but shanks. Anybody know what a shank is? You know what a shank is? Anybody ever heard of a shank? Well, a shank is a knife that is made. How do you might put tape around a piece of metal? Yeah, it's a sharpened tool, but you use it like a knife. So they put tape around it and stuff like that. Um, and then the housing violence, individuals near relatively defenseless people. Like you'll have people who maybe that go in that are not awaiting time, but actually maybe they're individuals that didn't even commit crimes. Non-violent offenders, for example, being placed with violent offenders, those kinds of things. Um, and then also you have the gang issue that takes place as well. And then you have, like I said again, you have first timers who go in, and then you have people who've been there a long time. And then the overall level of tension produced by too many people being in an area. Okay, these are violent things. So special populations, I'm not going to talk about these because you got to do this assignment. And it tells you what some of you tells you some things, hello, that you can help. Now listen, I don't want anybody to cite the module in their papers. Don't cite the module. You can use it to start. If you're using substance abusers, you could get some ideas, but then you'll find some information, do some research and cite those sources. Developmental disabilities, HIV, AIDS, elderly offenders, long-term offenders like people who commit multiple violent offenses, 3 strikes, mandatory minimums based on sentencing, and possibly natural life, no possibility of parole. Those kinds of people, you have to deal with those special ways. Military veterans, substance abuse is one of the things that goes with that a lot of times. and then sex offenders. These are just some. Okay, so you can go through that. Okay, these special populations. In this one here, you're going to do, and you're going to help. I'm going to see if you really know. We're almost at the end. Juveniles are treated differently, and some of the reasons listed here. They're young and easy to change. Juveniles have a high rate of desistance. Juvenile families are important to their lives. Juveniles are influenced by peers, and juveniles have little responsibility for others. One of the things that you should be aware of is our goal with juveniles is to give them a second chance and to help them to not grow into adult offenders. So now I'm going to take a minute and ask you here to put one of these. Okay, juvenile petition. Which of these does it go into for function? Taken into custody, legal, formal charges. Okay, charges. Okay, juvenile respondent. Juvenile respondent. Person charged. Okay, took a little while for you to get that. Adult trial. Adult and trial. Let me show you something. It won't fit in the wrong one. So you're right. Okay, adult arrested. Yep, you're going to hear me talk about this in criminal law once you take that. Juvenile finding. And then last one is legal basis. Okay, so you got these. So these are all that have to do with adult or juvenile, and it helps you to understand and learn about this. Okay, so now the last thing is for you to take time to do a vocabulary review. I under These are on the test. These are on your quiz, some of these in variations. They're not exactly. So this is a practice quiz to help you. So what you're doing is you're going to put these together. You're going to match them, and I'm not going to match all of them, but that's how you go through and you do it. It gives you the answers. So risk principle fits which of these? The first one, the second one, or the third one? Which one? Or read the one on the right and then match it up. Who we target to prioritize supervision and provide treatment resources for higher risk offenders. Which one? Risk principle, responsibility principle, or need principle? Okay, some said 2 second. Let's try this one. Okay, we'll see if you're right. What we target to match intervention to individuals, those most highly correlated with recidivism. And then the last one. Let's see if you're right. One of these is wrong, and it tells you. So I'm not going to go back and tell you which one. I know the answer, but you can do the same thing. You can go back and you can figure out which one. So that's why this is good. And then you can continue and do the next one as well. So you do each of these. There's 7 different ones. Your score should be 70 for a perfect score. Okay. Now I can tell you this, that once you do your reading and go through your PowerPoints, you'll get this. Okay. So this is something else that can help you get ready for your quiz. All right. So that's it. Any questions? Any questions? Okay. Well, I need to give you a key phrase. Recidivist. That's it. Just give me that word and you'll get your points. Okay. Okay, everybody. I'm going to wish you a good evening. I hope that you're getting a grasp of these assignments, but please, the difference in passing this class and failing this class are getting those rubrics, especially in that written assignment. So important, very important, extremely important. I talk about them so much, so important to get them. And let me tell you something why we focus on rubrics. We focus on rubrics because we're giving you a clue as to what we want you, what our expectations are concerning the assignment for you. And we're also helping you to take the material that you studied and show us that you understand how to properly apply it. Because guess what? In your jobs in the future, you're going to have to do that on a regular basis. Otherwise, it could cause you to get fired or either reduced pay. Or it could cause you not to get hired because you could be asked questions during an interview. So that's why we do that. And so the rubrics, what they do is they mirror what the reading material, the stuff we talk about in lecture, and that's why we ask if you have any questions that you need clarified. I don't ever take someone and kick it aside, and I don't assume that you know just because you hear me talking. I will ask any questions. Sometimes students don't like to ask questions because they think that it's not a good question. Well, the only good questions are the questions you don't ask. So, okay, guys, I'm going to say good night to you. Stay safe. And I look forward to seeing you guys next week. Oh, one last thing. Your assignments for week 1 will be graded by the end of Friday. Every week, that's how they are until we get to the last week. But Fridays is when your assignments that we do Sunday will be graded by by Friday that week that you submit them. Okay, anything from anybody? Nope. Okay, then I'm going to say good night. I will see you next week, and stay safe. All right. Watch your health out there with dealing with this pandemic, and your uh, mental health dealing with this other issue that I talked about at the beginning. Uh, because it's going to get better. Trust me. I already know. You're part of the reason it's going to get better. That's why we have you guys in school. Good night.